Yeah. Okay, so today's presentation is going to be about file naming and organization on your computer. So why does file organization matter? You can save time by making files easy to locate quickly without wasting any time searching. If you organize your files, you can also reduce stress by avoiding the frustration of lost documents. And organizing files ensures the consistency across projects, making collaboration. If you want to share a file with someone, it'll make it much easier. And file organization protects data integrity and reduces errors by minimizing duplicate and outdated files. So here are some common problems with poor file management. Duplicate files consume a lot of storage and may make it hard to find the latest version. Important files get lost or might be buried in disorganized folders, and confusion arises from inconsistent version naming. And finally, wasted time spent searching for files reduces productivity. So if you have an organized list of files, then you can find your files easier, and it's also going to be easier to share them and use them. The basics of smart file naming. Number one, use really concise words that clearly describe the file's content or purpose. Also, avoid overly long names. Keep it brief but informative. Keep it to an extent where you know what the file is, but it's not like a description of the file in the file's name. And incorporate key elements like the project name. So if you're making a file for, let's say, a music video, then you can write music video and then you can write some more information about the file. Maybe like the date that you recorded the video. So keep it relevant and use consistent formatting. Don't have one file with like random letters and then another file that's really organized. Keep your files consistent so that way you have a thought in your mind of, how do I search for these files and how do I find them? So here's the standard naming guidelines for naming files. Use last name space project name space date. And that's the easiest way to organize it. That's sort of an industry standard, I guess. You could name it that to quickly identify the file owner, project, and creation date. That way, let's say you search up for, like, what's today's date? Today is 6/13. So if you search up for 6/13 in your file manager, then you can easily find all the files that you did on 6/13. So that's a good, like, sort of guideline to name your files. And then client task v1, that format clarifies the client, specific task, and version number. And always keep names consistent, like I said before. You don't want one file to have a really long or complex name, and another file to have an easy one. Keep a naming scheme, even if you don't follow this exact pattern for naming files. Keep some sort of scheme or some sort of guideline for naming your files that so you can find your files easier. And also avoid long names, but include enough detail to distinguish files clearly. So using dates and file names. Use the year, month, and day format for easy sorting and clarity. For example, you could do 2024 5/8. If you were doing it for today, you could do 2025 slash 13 slash '06. Or you could also do it in the US standard, whatever works for you, whatever country you're from, whatever date format you use for identifying the date, use that to name your files. That's going to be the easiest for you to know. Also, place the date at the start or the end of the file name for a consistent chronological order. So like I said in the earlier standard format, usually placing it at the end is the best. So you can name a file, let's say video files for 6/8, placing it at the end. That way, if you search up 6/8 or if you search up video files, you can easily find the file that you're looking for. And this will help with the remembering of the circumstance and relevance of the file. So here are the folder structures. Use a top-down order, starting with really broad categories. If you're putting your files into folders, then let's say you have something like video editing. Then you have a more detailed file. Maybe you have music video editing. Maybe you have YouTube video editing. And inside music video editing, you might have maybe an album, So music videos for an album, and then you can have different names of albums. So do a top-down order of naming your folders. That way you can have one big folder, but really broad, pretty much everything that you can look into. But you can narrow down based on exactly what you're looking for. And separate documents by type. And I think a lot of file management platforms already do this. You can have documents, images, spreadsheets. So if your file management system does this, then separate your files by or folders by documents, images, and spreadsheets. Separate them by whatever form they are in. Also organized by year or project to easily locate files related to specific time frames. So again, going back to the date thing, use the date system that applies to you and then put that at the end of the file. That's why it's easily identifiable. And finally, consistent folder naming helps maintain order and speeds up file search and access. If you name each folder based on what its purpose is, maybe you have a folder for home, work, maybe different parts of work, maybe different parts of what you do at home. That consistent naming, that's really the easiest way for file management to work out. I'm not really a person who keeps my files that organized, but again, I don't have a lot of files. So honestly, if you have a lot of files, if you're using a lot of files, if you download a lot of stuff, then it's best to keep some sort of consistent system for naming and organizing your files and folders. Okay, naming your folders. Use clear category names to quickly identify contents. Think of, like a library. They might have different genres, and that's how they classify stuff. So, for example, you might have fiction, you might have like fantasy, sci-fi. So, when you're naming your folders, think of a library, think of how they organize their books. Sort of do it in that exact same way, where when your organization is based on the category it's in. So, like I said, music editing or video editing, do those in two separate categories when naming your folders. Also include relevant details even in your folders. So if one of your folders is, let's say, audio editing for 2024, put 2024 in the title of your folder. That way you can search up the year and then find it. And just like the same thing for files, keep your folder names concise and descriptive, enough to understand the content without opening. So use the similar format that I gave before, like the StormDiff format for names and the dates. Do the same thing for folders, not just files. And also maintain a consistent naming pattern across all your folders. So remember, just in case a bit of vocab in case you're a bit confused. Files are like individual files, documents. I guess files are individual documents or images or videos. And then folders are a collection of those. So folder is a bigger version. It's a collection of individual files. So what I'm saying here is name your files, name your individual stuff, whatever it is, but also name your folders in a way that you know what's inside the folders. You know the type of files that are inside the folder. And also use tags and color coding. This is a common feature found in a lot of file management platforms. You can tag different files or folders, and tags allow for grouping files across folders by topic, priority, or status. I've seen some file management programs where you can make your own tags. So maybe you have tiers, maybe you organize your stuff in tiers. You can say tier 1, tag that to your most important files or tasks. Tier 2, so that's the thing that is subordinate to tier 1 tasks, but you still got to get it done. Then you can have a tier 3, which are kind of more miscellaneous, more for fun sort of files. So remember to tag your files. If you're a person that likes color coding, if you're a visual sort of person, then always remember to tag or color code your files so you can easily find them. And color coding visually distinguishes file types, project status, or urgency. So as I said, you can either use a text tag or you can use a color code. Maybe a red color coding symbol, I guess that could represent something that's really important, something that you need to get done ASAP within a day. Maybe a green color coded icon, that could represent something that, you have an ear to do. Maybe you have a while to do that task. So color coding helps, and using tags also helps. And these just help maintain clarity and they speed up file retrieval. Also set strict guidelines. Keep the desktop minimal. You don't want to use up too much space. I'm a victim for having a lot of really I guess video files that I don't need from a long time ago. Maybe stuff that I've already posted on YouTube, but I still have a file for it even though I don't need it anymore. So don't do that. Don't be me. Don't do what I do. Don't keep really old files that you're not using anymore. Instead, make sure that you clean up your desktop pretty often. Regularly empty the downloads folder by sorting files into appropriate folders, then deleting unnecessary items. Maybe you have a tag or maybe you have a folder that says miscellaneous. If you don't need that stuff anymore, just delete it. There's no point in keeping it on your computer if you don't need it. That's gonna A, make your computer faster, and also clean it up so you can find your actually important files easier. Use the documents folder for long-term storage of important files. So if you have a documents folder, let's say you're using the Windows file manager, you have that documents folder, use that documents folder for long-term storage. If there's some important documents that you need to keep, something like medical documents, keep it in that folder. And also review files to maintain order. I usually recommend every 3 to 6 months, go over your computer, do an entire cleanup of your computer, whatever device you're using. Go look through your files, look through your photos, clean everything up so everything is as clean and tidy, and I guess as simple as possible. How does cloud storage impact organization? Nowadays, there's a lot of cloud storage platforms. Remember, cloud storage is putting all of your documents on someone else's digital cloud. It's not getting stored locally on your computer. It's not linked to your SSD or hard drive in any way. Instead, it's getting stored in the cloud. Cloud storage platforms like Google Drive, OneDrive, and Dropbox enable access to files from anywhere. And there's also an automatic syncing part to it. If you keep your files stored on your hard drive, then you're going to have those files on your hard drive. You might not be able to access your files from, let's say, your phone. If you want to look at those files from your phone, well, you can't do that because it's stored locally on your computer. But using these cloud storage platforms, it allows you to use it across devices. You can also create duplicates. Now, you can also use shared folders when using cloud storage. And these shared folders facilitate team collaboration. So let's say you have a Word document, maybe it's a presentation that you're working on. Presentations are always stored in the cloud. So that's how cloud storage impacts the organization, where you can have that presentation, you can have multiple presentations categorized, and other people can access it too. So it's not only you. And also, just like real physical storage on your hard drive, regularly review and clean cloud storage to try to remove outdated files. If you have a Google slide presentation from a while ago, I know I have some from second grade, which obviously I don't need anymore, then you should just go ahead and delete those files. Like Google Drive has a 15 gig max limit. So old files, old presentations, old videos or photos on Google Drive, they might be eating into that 15 gigs. So always remember to delete your files on time. So here's some really good practices for shared devices. If you and your friend or you and someone in your family, if both of you are using the same device, then establish and enforce uniform naming conventions. If someone else has to try to get into your files, let's say you're collaborating on a computer, then make sure that your file naming scheme isn't too complex. It shouldn't be in a different language that the other person doesn't speak. It shouldn't be in an unorganized way. Instead, use that standard forming, and again, I'll probably paste it in the chat once I'm done with this presentation. Use a clear format that not only you, but other persons can also, understand and access the files. Use clear descriptive folder names that reflect project names or dates. Again, this is just a repetition of what I've said before. If you're naming folders or files, keep it clear. Don't have some long name that's really confusing. Keep it clear and very short, concise. And also set appropriate folder permissions. If you're sharing a computer with, let's say, your brother or your cousin, you don't want them to see all of your files. Maybe they have to see some of your files. Let's say you're working on something together. Give them permissions for some of the files, but don't let them see the other files that are personally you. Stuff that's personally identifiable to you. So again, keep folder permissions. Maybe there's a video that I can share. Maybe Summer can share it in the email of how to keep proper folder permissions to make sure you access the files you need, but other people don't access your personal files. And also regularly examine shared drives to remove outdated files. Whether it's your individual drive or it's a shared drive with someone else, always remember to delete outdated files and ask that person first before you delete it. If it's something that's shared that both people are using, then ask the other person if it's okay to delete. And if it is okay to delete, then be sure to delete the files that you don't need. So here are some helpful tools and automation tips. Use tools called batch file renaming tools to quickly rename multiple files. I believe these are tools you can find online. I've never heard of them, but you can use these renaming tools to maybe quickly sync or maybe quickly format all of your files to be a specific naming format. And also create reusable file naming templates to maintain consistency across projects and teams. Also, set up automatic backup solutions. We've probably talked about backup solutions a lot on Cyber Seniors, but backing up your files is extremely important. I can't understate that, especially if you have really important personally identifiable files, medical records, stuff like that. Don't just keep it on one drive or don't just keep it on the cloud. Keep it on multiple different backup systems. That way, let's say that your hard drive gets corrupted, then your files aren't all gone. You can still access your files on the cloud or on some other drive. And also explore workflow automation apps to integrate organization into your daily routine. Here are some mistakes to avoid when you're doing file organization. Saving everything on your desktop leads to clutter and makes files hard to find. So if you want to use stuff, let's say on other devices, like I said before, put your files on the cloud. Don't save all of them in your Microsoft Files app. Also save things on Google Drive. Spread it out to maintain some consistency. If you have to use your files on other devices, then don't put your stuff locally. Put them on the cloud. Also, don't ignore regular backups. Or don't ignore regular backups because ignoring regular backups risks losing important documents in case of accidental deletion. Accidental deletion happens all the time, and none of us are prone from it. I've deleted files on accident. I know pretty much everyone in my family, pretty much everyone that I know, they've deleted files. So make sure that you have some sort of backup. I mean, you probably have a recently deleted folder wherever you deleted your files, but still maintain a backup so the files that you've deleted, they're not gone forever. And another mistake is using inconsistent or vague file names. Like if you keep a document new.docs or final, that can cause some confusion. A new doc today might not be a new doc tomorrow. You might have more docs coming in. So always make sure you name it with the date. I think the date's the most important thing to keep. Don't just name it new because it's not going to be new tomorrow. It's not going to be new in a year. So make sure your naming kind of follows a good format. So this is our conclusion. How to build a system that works for you. Number one, design a folder and naming system tailored to your project types. If you're someone who doesn't really use their computer much, this might not be something to worry about. This might not be, like the top of your priority list. But if you have a lot of files, maybe if you're working for a business, maybe you have a business of your own, and you have to have a lot of files that you're juggling back and forth, create a good naming scheme and create a good folder management system. And don't be afraid to use AI, like ChatGPT, Gemini. There might be kind of like a stigma against using AI and maybe some markets, some cultures, I guess. But don't be against using AI. As long as it's helping you, you're not using it in any bad or malicious way, then using AI is a great way to figure out how to manage your files. You just tell the AI a bit about you and what kind of files you do. The AI system's going to tell you how to organize your files. It's going to be sort of your personal assistant. Also, maintain consistency in naming conventions and folders. That one I've already spoken about before. And regularly examine and clean up files to keep your system efficient and clutter-free. Again, go through it every 3 to 6 months. Go through the files that you don't need. And if it's a shared file, then ask the other person if they don't need it too. Keep deleting your files. Don't keep files from like 10 years ago that you don't need on your device. And finally, you can use different automation tools. The naming tools that we talked about before. I'll do a bit more research into those. Use some automation tools and Again, use tags and color coding to simplify file management. And that way you can prioritize the important documents, put them into tiers. I think tiering is a really good way of organizing files. You can have a tier one, tier two, tier three. Maybe you can do like A, B, C. Having those sort of tiers and naming your files based on those tiers, that can really help you see which files or which tasks are most important. If you have a file that you need to use in the next day, keep it as tier one. If you have a file that maybe you don't need to use for a while, then keep it as a tier three file. So anyway, that's pretty much it.